Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg Caucus meeting for September 26, 2023 to order. The time is 7 p.m. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mr. Deeds?
Here.
Mrs. Labby? Here. Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
All right. Thank you, Shannon. Do we have any presentations this evening?
None this evening.
Okay. Moving along to items for discussion. Any items for discussion, council, this evening?
Mayor?
Basso's here.
Oh, that's right. Chief, good evening. Come on up.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are here tonight. This is Lieutenant Chris Sorm. The discussion I want to talk about tonight is regarding a contract we have for our new ladder truck that was signed in October of '22. For the purpose of this discussion, I just want to define how we label our trucks. So if I say Tower 1, the 1 is where it's assigned. If I say Ladder 2, we don't have 2. That's the station where it is. So the present build that we have a contract for, nothing's, it's in the design stage now. There's no nuts being turned or nothing being welded. It's in a design stage now. So as we're talking about moving in another direction, I too want to move in another direction. When we bought we have 2 ladder trucks. They're presently, they were built in 2000. So right now they're 23 years old. We have a 100-foot stick, which is a straight stick. And we have 104-foot and 109-foot ladder as well. When I talk about platform, that's the one that has a platform, has a bucket on it, or like one of our guys like to say, it has the big dumpster hanging over the windshield. So it's 2 different trucks. They both are over 100 foot. After discussing it and looking at the budget and the 10-year plan that we had presented before me, it's time to make a change. I don't believe that we need to have 2 ladder trucks of that size in our community.
We had this discussion years ago.
Well, I'm here to close those loose, Mr. Fury.
Thank you.
So the proposed truck that we have now, the price of turning it from a straight stick to a platform does go up, but I'm going to tell you that we're going to save you $2 million over the next 5 years. And actually, the next truck that we look at won't be for another 10. So we certainly have other uses for that $2 million. There's other small fleets, and there's also some items I want to work on at the fire station that need addressed. Not renovations, but bringing, there's items that we talked about, turning our east side of the station without changing the footprint, putting locker rooms there. Right now, the gear is exposed it still has exhaust fumes and light and everything else, and Station 2 has a room that has its own ventilation. So things like that, smart, no nonsense, efficiency. So if you look around the communities that we surround us, nobody has 2 ladder trucks of that size. We need 1. Problem is, the one that we ordered isn't the right one. We need one with a platform on it. The platform truck has more it has more options that we use. You can put 2 or 3 people, depending on the size. You could put 3 of me in the bucket, or 2 of our larger ones, set them right to the roof and bring them down. And you could have people that we're rescuing actually get in the bucket. With the straight stick, you're limited. Put the ladder up, and the firefighters have to physically climb the ladder and then bring people down. So I don't know if you want your grandmother, or I wouldn't want my mom trying to climb down a 100-foot ladder. I'd rather put her in a bucket and bring her down safely. Like I said, more common sense, efficient use of our money, and just not having the burden of having 2 large ladder trucks in a community our size. So if you go to Hudson, they have 1 platform. If you go to Aurora, same thing. Streetsboro, same thing. Macedonia, these are all larger square mileage areas too, and they have 1 for each. So we recognize that back in 2000, it was like an embarrassment of riches. We had a lot of money, and we raised a lot of eyebrows. Back then, we bought 2, and I guess ironically, probably there's only 2 of us left that were on that committee, and we said, oh, it's not going to be our problem, we have to replace them. Well, guess what? It's your problem. So when I'm here before you, this is Chris Sorum. I'm going to let him discuss the differences between the straight stick and the ladder, and the conversation we've had with Atlantic. So,
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks,
Chief. Good evening, Chris.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Appreciate it.
coming.
Thank you all. So this, like Chief said, this started back in 1999 when those two trucks showed up. It's unique for a city of our size to have two ladder trucks. But as we discussed, we're moving in a new direction. We thought that these trucks are getting more and more expensive. And when I started, when I was made the head of the committee in February of 2000, the cost for the trucks were right around 1.3, 1.5 million, and the build times were 18 to 20 months. And then over that year of 2022, there was several price increases instituted. When we signed this contract, we beat a 6.5% increase. I don't remember the exact numbers, it was right around $93,000, so we were kind of like, let's get this signed. There was 15 other % of increases that we did not beat. So the increases just kept coming. Every 45 to 90 days, the manufacturers were increasing. So where we're at today, do we really need two ladders? I believe that we can do what we need to do with the one ladder. But if I'm going to pick the one ladder, whether it be the straight stick or the platform, it's going to be the platform, simply because of what Chief said. It's just much easier. I can put 3 firefighters. There's a 750-pound limit in that platform. So I can put 3 firefighters and they can ride to the top up to whatever elevated height we're going to. And they don't have to climb, and then they can go to work up on the top side on the roof there. Or I can put 2 firefighters in there. Each firefighter is estimated at 250 pounds, and then they can carry chainsaws and hose and all that other stuff and still stay in that limit. This way they're not carrying these things on their shoulders at a 100-foot elevation and an 80-degree incline. It's just not the safest way of doing things. Or I can do 1 firefighter in that bucket, like Chief said, and I can grab 2 victims off of there and still stay in that weight range. But again, I don't really want to, with the straight stick that we are proposed to build, I don't want to walk somebody that's already injured or incapacitated due to smoke, or have one of our guys carrying somebody down on their shoulders at 100 feet down to, at 80 degrees. So it's just I think when we really looked at it, we saw this as an opportunity to streamline, to be fiscally responsible with the money, to still provide a high level of service that the community can be proud of, that our department can be proud of. So that's the big differences there, and that's really the truck that we need. And like Chief said, I think we can eliminate coming back in another couple of years to replace for 2.5, or who knows, 3 million, because the price increases are still coming. The next one is November 1st at 1%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on 1% on 2.2, 2.3 million, that's a lot. So we're trying to do the correct thing here. And then so the other, with the ladder that we built, that's a process. There's a build process that takes months. Took us probably about 5 months to sit down with Atlantic. Atlantic is the dealership. Think of them as the dealership for the brand Pierce. That's the manufacturer of the truck. So Atlantic, they're in Macedonia. We have a good relationship with them. We already have 1 Pierce in our bays over here at Station 1. Dave Hendry, our city mechanic, is certified to work on the Pierce trucks because he used to work for Finley Equipment, which used to be the dealership for Pierce. So we went with Pierce. We have a good relationship with them. Where was I going with that? The customer. Okay, so that whole process. The build times now, if we were to enter into that process, go 4 or 5 months into sitting down with the dealership and engineers, signing a contract, the delivery time is now 46 to 49 months. Wow. That's how things have gone. Like I said, I started last year at February 2022, it was 18 to 20. Things have now bumped out to 46 to 49 months These trucks are at 23 years old. The recommendation through the National Fire Protection Agency, which puts out codes and standards that we follow, 1901 Section D states 15 years. They want to see the frontline trucks go to reserve status, 25 years to be replaced. We would be outside that window. So what this Atlantic company, the dealership, does, they become the customer. They order trucks also through Pierce, and then they advertise them. So if somebody's looking for a truck pretty quick, they have a truck that's available coming down the assembly line. No different than anybody else. They also have to wait 4 years. So the trucks that we're looking at, they have 2 left, but it's open to the entire world. So anybody at any time can come in and sneak one of those trucks away if we don't move. If we lose out on those 2 trucks, then we're into the build process, and then 46 to 49 months wait time on those. So we're trying to get this truck as quick as we can to secure a truck for the community. And these trucks, they come with 85% of the most popular options. So when they say stock inventory, it's not a stripped out, doesn't, like think of the old days in a car, it didn't even come with a radio sometimes, So this is optioned out well. It has everything that we would need to do our job. So that's kind of what we're looking at, trying to avoid going into a 46 to 49 month build time, and then kind of leaving us without trucks that are, constantly breaking down. So
One option has it coming, that we can get it as early as October of 24.
I'm sorry.
Or February of 25, depending on which truck. When we started this conversation, there was 3 trucks. That was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, literally the next day the one sold.
And the truck that we're designing now, the straight stick, that can actually be purchased by another customer, because there's the different options that were on that. It's a custom build. I'm not in a custom anymore. We have had a history of building stuff around what we have. It's got to stop. We need to get the right vehicles, and the vehicle that we're proposing, we have the stuff that will fit in the vehicle. We don't need to design cabinets and design the truck around things we have. We have all sorts of tools that we carry just because we have the room, and it makes no sense sometimes. So time to streamline. We're doing, just like I said, more common sense approach, being efficient and being good stewards of taxpayer money. With me, I live in this town. I pay the property tax, so that capital money and all the money, I can't look myself in the mirror as a resident and as a department head and feel good about spending money that we don't need to. So I believe this is the right thing to do for our community. It's the right equipment to get to our staff, and it protects our city very well. So the build times, and there's an extra cost, obviously. The contract that we have currently, it was for $1.7 million. This one's a little more expensive, so it's at 2.278, so 2.28 million. So it's a $500,000 increase. But like I opened with, we're not going to come back to you in 5 years wanting to spend $2.5 million, because that's what it'll be up to then. And we have more use for that money, more smart spending. So it's something to consider. We can get an earlier delivery. It's not a custom build, and it's the right truck. And we won't need 2.
Chief, I think the important thing, though, that we're able to cancel the current order.
Yes.
You didn't touch on that. They may have assumed that,
Yeah,
but
no, that was a
Right.
question
you
I
can
had.
cancel that current
Right.
order.
When they came in, they were straightforward.
With no fees
With no
attached to it.
repercussions.
That's the important part.
There's no restocking fee?
No, it's because there's nothing to restock. Now, they may have, well,
That's what I
I don't
call it,
build trucks for a living. So, but if it's $2,000 to $3,000, I'm sure we can, that's what I'm hearing. And what I first heard was 30%, and that's a lot of money. And I didn't want to be stuck with a truck that we will use, but it's not meeting our standards and what we need, how we need to operate.
So just from a clarification standpoint, we have the 2 ladder trucks, we'll call right now.
Yes.
We're proposing to cancel our current order, attempt to purchase something that is already in the build cycle to reduce
Correct.
our turnaround time, so we're not getting beyond those NFPA standards.
Correct.
What would, I'm assuming in the meantime, we would keep both ladder trucks in operation?
Yes.
we get the new truck, do we retire both trucks at that time?
We're going to have to. We had a conversation today where I thought we could put it in reserve, and Chris knows more about that standard than I do. We can't even keep it in reserve because it's past that useful life of 25
Fair
years.
enough. I'm just
Because the
asking
ladder
for-
has to be certified. Every year
Gotcha.
it's certified.
Okay.
So after 25 years, they're not going to certify it. So if we were to use that and something happened to us or a resident, we're liable for that. So as much as I could like to keep a reserve ladder truck, maybe get a couple points on ISO, that's probably not worth it. There's other ways that we can improve our ISO standing. We're doing really well. Our number's going down, but that's what you want, the number to go down. So my goal is to get, down the road after I'm dug in, is to get that number down in a couple years to a 2. That's a lot to throw at you. I get it. Is there any questions that we can answer?
So at that point, let's just say we do all of that, right? Are we still needing another truck that's not a ladder truck somewhere in the
Not
future?
for 10 more years.
We're not,
Engine
okay.
2 is in about 10, we'll start talking about it in 8 years, because in
Okay.
10 years, you'd have to replace it. Anything between those two, in that 10-year are like small fleet things.
Okay.
Fire prevention
But
vehicle, maybe.
but
a
our
brush
overall
truck.
fleet would be net
Yeah.
We're
-1
even
after
looking-
this all
yes,
shakes out?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
We'll be down to 1. And then the possibility, maybe we'll look, when it's time to replace engine 2, because it's at station 2, maybe we'll look at a Quint, which is a smaller, it's like a 65 to 70 foot, they call it a telesquirt. You don't climb it, it just goes up and squirts water. And that's great for our other taller houses up north, especially Corbett's and Ethan's and Meadowwood. That's the right purchase. That's 8 years down the road. But you have to plan for that ahead of time too. So right now, we're talking about these 2 trucks, the difference between the 2, and the need to change the option to a platform.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mrs. Labby, you had something you wanted to?
Yeah, I had one question. When the chief comes, you talk about sometimes simultaneous calls overlapping. Historically, in the past, say, 20 years, has it ever been that we needed the 2 ladder trucks at the same time?
No, I can't. Well, we had one major fire. We didn't have those trucks, though, during the J.T. Eaton fire. We've had, and another one I want to bring up, when that platform that we have now went mutual aid to Oakwood for a metal fires in Walton Hills, and we had 2 members in the bucket, and he put water on certain metals at an explosion. I think he was in the truck. There's no place to hide on a straight stick. We were up there. They were able to duck down and avoid the explosion that came up. So there's safety factors, too. It's a place for shelter. They were able to duck down and avoid the explosion. I forgot about that until we were talking about those. And we ought to understand, too, it's not just to reach floors and stories. It's also, there's aerial master streams on those ladder tips that will large volumes of water from above. So don't think of the Hilton, or think of like Amazon or places that are sprawling that we can get people, water flow above the building as well. Mr. Post, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think you actually answered some of them, and you asked a question there. So all these other cities do it with 1 truck. My question is, what happens if one goes down? What if one gets into an accident? What if it goes down for 6 weeks because the axle?
Well, right now we have 1 in service. Ladder 2 is actually down at Station 1 because Tower 1 is getting pump work done on it. We haven't got a return time yet because we don't know. They're taking the pump apart, so they don't know what pieces, parts they need until they take it apart. So
We have a backup.
we have a backup right now,
Down
but
to 1.
But when we're down to none, we just rely on mutual aid. We go mutual aid, Streetsboro's may go down. They've gone down before. Macedonia's been out of service, so we are their ladder truck. We will still take an engine, 2 engines to that call, and rely on mutual aid, the next one in, to provide that.
Is there, just for curiosity, is there a cost for mutual aid, or is it just a reciprocity?
It's reciprocity. You can opt out. No one's ever chosen to, as far as I've known in 30 years, but there's no cost to it.
Okay.
Except for hazmat, you can get those cost recovery. That's the only type of call, and usually the shipper or the company pays for that.
And these big trucks, they only go out for when there's...
Industrial, well, we have, we call it a response plan. So anything that's got high hazard, any industry, the buildings like the high school. We'll send an engine company and a ladder truck.
Okay, so if these trucks go for 20, 25 years, okay, I guess, why do we need that other one in 10 years?
Because it's an engine. It's a different type of truck.
Oh, it's to replace one of the other.
Currently, we have 2 engines, okay?
So your question,
Right.
it's not adding another truck in 10 years?
We're not adding another truck.
it's replacing.
Actually, we'll be reducing the fleet by 1.
So, which is what you said, would be -1. So even if we bought the 2 now, we'd still be replacing one of those in 10 years?
Yeah, and that's, I want to avoid, yeah. Actually, the plan was 5 years, and that's, can't come to you again in 5 years and ask for another $2.5 million. Actually, it'll probably be more than that, but the way the costs are going out.
Okay.
So, like I said, just in summation, fiscally responsible, we need to change the order. So we just wanted to advise you that we need to change the order on this to be smart about it. And like I said, moving in the right, in a new direction. Our motto next door for the last few months has been moving forward. So we are moving forward. So I appreciate the mayor's time yesterday, his diligence. Lieutenant Sorum, he knows, he can stand up here all day and talk to you about ladder trucks and engines, and that's, that's his forte. They know every nut and bolt on these trucks, the engines, the brake systems, the pumps, all that stuff. They're very detailed. And there's other people involved too on our department that are on the committee. So Lieutenant Kettner, you got Kevin Rod, who's a firefighter, Joe D'Ambrosia, Lieutenant D'Ambrosia, and Joe Sugar, and Ryan Nutter. So they all put a lot of collective energy in this. And this wasn't just me and Chris. They were all asked their opinion on this. And beginning of the meeting, they were like, I don't know, we like these options that we had. And at the end of the meeting, they felt really good that they can deal with this truck. It's a nice truck. The one we ordered is a nice truck, but it doesn't fit our needs.
Ms. Walker, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I want to ask about the gas that you put in the fire engine. How much does it hold? How long will it take you from place A to B? And do you have gas pumps at your station?
So the tank on the truck is a 65-gallon tank, and the fuel pumps are the pumps down at the service garage for diesel fuel. As far as how long it'll last, that's a tough one, because we normally, once our tanks get down to 3/4, we fill them back up. So they don't really ever get down to even half a tank, very rarely. But we do that just in case we do end up on a call that runs a very long time. And as far as how long that's going to last, it depends on how much we're pumping. If we're running the pumps on there, running the water, if we're running high volumes of water, of course, that fuel, it's not going to be as fuel as efficient. It's going to use more fuel. But if we're not pumping a whole lot of fuel, I mean, it would probably be 12 hours.
You have this
then that's
fuel-
just a guess.
And Beaver Petroleum can deliver a truck to us and deliver fuel right to the truck.
Oh, okay.
They're saying they're the vendor that provides fuel to our pumps.
Oh, okay.
So they will come to your scene, and it's, a lot of fire departments have done that. East Palestine, they were bringing fuel trucks to, those trucks don't, once they're going and pumping, they don't want to
They're
shut them
not
down.
moving. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good.
You said that our mechanic is Pierce qualified and serviced. Is this?
He's the
Correct, yep.
EVT, yes, emergency
So is-
vehicle technician.
And then we were going to order 2 Pierce trucks. Is this one also a Pierce?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's rare having a city mechanic that is not just the EVT, emergency vehicle technician, but he's familiar with Pierce product, which is, he
Well, that's
knows a
good.
lot about them. And I can't say enough about how Fred and David have kept our fleet up and running, the med units, for crying out loud. We talked about that in depth, Mr. Fury, at our capital improvements. They keep them running, and we can't be more grateful for them. And so it was good. It was encouraging news tonight that, and our new med units aren't going to be here until January. And things are slow.
Sure.
I'm disappointed to hear that, but we have 2 new med units coming soon, and not soon enough in my case, in my opinion.
Mr. Deeds, do you have anything?
Yeah, just real quickly, so we're ordering 2 stick trucks, we're canceling one of those orders, right?
No, we ordered 1. It's,
Well, that's really not where I'm getting to anyway, so just bear with me a second. So you need 1 bucket truck is the
Correct.
bottom line. And it's local is where you're getting it. I assume, even though that's local and it's easy, better to get a place, something local, I assume there's, like, what happens, what's the backup plan, I guess, is where I'm going at, if if these trucks here, you can't get one of them?
Well, they're built
I assume they do
they're
this
built in
all over the
Wisconsin,
country, right?
actually. This is their dealership. The dealer is in Macedonia. The service center is in Macedonia. It's like you see Spitzer all over the place.
Right.
They're Atlantic's all over the place. There's a lot of dealerships that sell Pierce. Does that make sense? Pierce is in Wisconsin.
Pierce is in Appleton, Wisconsin.
And it's huge. It's a huge facility, and they keep adding on to it.
world's largest
It is the
manufacturer.
world's largest manufacturer of fire trucks. So I don't really have a plan B. Plan B would be just go ahead and suck up what we ordered and try to adjust our operations, and that would be probably the least of my
But
desires.
once we cancel it, we can't do that.
It's the same company. We're just, let's say you ordered a car and you wanted a Corvette, and now you want the convertible, but they're building it, but they found one that's stock for you. So they're going to cancel that build, that custom build, and give you a stock one that you like that's got all your options on it with the convertible. Does that make sense? And they're not going to ding you because you're still going to buy from that same dealer.
No, I get that.
Okay.
But I'm saying if we can't get the bucket truck, because.
We're not going to cancel until we
Right.
determine that we can get it.
That's.
Correct.
That's
We're
what I
not
was getting
until
at.
we know. Right now, at this time, at 7:25, there's 2 ladder trucks available.
25? 7:25 already? Wow.
7:25,
Time's
keyword
flying
there.
by.
See, 1925.
15 minutes I gave you guys,
But
15.
I don't want to,
Go get one.
labor this, but.
Go get one.
We have a plan.
That's what I was trying to
And
understand.
there's actually 4 options, I only gave you 2, okay? And we don't want to start over again. That was the last option. That would be, almost 5 years.
That was the
So.
reason to get them guys in front of you right away because of the urgency of getting,
Yeah.
Yeah.
getting it in there and tell them, we'll take it.
So, Christina or Chief, do you need anything from us tonight, other than just the presentation? I mean,
Christina, right?
So there was legislation passed in 2022 for the purchase of the fire truck, so I'm assuming you would just need a motion to approve the amended purchase price.
Make a motion. I think if we actually pass something, we're going to have to bring it back up as legislation.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable doing that.
You can't do it
through
on motion. You
yeah,
gotta-
piece of legislation to amend the previous legislation.
So based on the timing that Chief has mentioned, however, I mean, that kind of leaves us in a time crunch to bring legislation back in 2 weeks. I guarantee these vehicles are probably going to be off the market at that point.
Need to tell these guys like ASAP.
so what kind of action can we take this evening, Mayor or Mr. Vazana, to sort of authorize a temporary appropriations based on forthcoming legislation?
10 to 22.
I think they're talking.
Yeah, and
I was
We've done this
on the meeting.
before.
yeah.
We can do a letter of commitment to them, subject to council approval. So we're committing to the purchase, and the final piece would have to be with council's approval. And of course, when they talk to them, council's already been apprised. I don't believe anybody's opposed tonight.
Do we need anything as far as a
No,
vote
like-
this
But then,
evening?
Yeah, not from a specific action for you to take tonight, but yeah, the mayor's, oftentimes we're faced with emergency purchases where, we can't bind the city formally or legally or officially. So what I've advised in the past on those fronts is to do essentially, letter. Sometimes vendors are happy with an email that just, we go into it knowing that you guys have the final say and that our timing of our calendar doesn't comport with that. But they send over a letter that says, hey, we're interested in moving forward with this. But this was all subject to this day. Council's going to review legislation and they can, it'll be up to them to vote to officially authorize the expenditure.
letter of intention.
Sure, okay.
Yeah,
We have the revised contract, so if you want to review that part of it, they sent one over.
Would that be enough?
Yeah, I definitely will take a look at the contract before we sign it. But yeah, I think, and then I can have an amendment drawn up easily for our next meeting to, go along with what Mr. Fury said. And we can present that as an emergency measure, so it'll go effective immediately. And in the interim, I can, work with the fire department on language that they can use that would comport with this situation, so they wouldn't run afoul of any of the rules.
I guess the question is, will a letter of intent suffice for Atlantic?
I've been told no.
So if letter of intent will not suffice, right, then this is all moot.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not willing to accept it, in my experience, I have had good luck with that. I mean, we've used that with other capital purchases.
Yeah, I can ask after tonight too, just to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that,
Why don't we have an emergency meeting?
you let them know about the council schedule, and that you talked to council tonight, and that there was support behind
It's one meeting.
and move forward with the purchase, but just due to the timing of the council schedule, we can't.
Bring it up.
There's nothing we can do tonight on that.
Right.
What if we
Yeah,
need a
it's-
motion?
And it's not really a letter of intent. It's a contract contingent upon approval.
Correct.
So it's a little bit more,
Sure, but if they're the rules, they're the rules. I mean, I understand your
I'm sure they
position.
run into this all the
Maybe a
time.
cherry on top of the sundae.
I just talked to the law director, and, I was thinking maybe we can make a motion to authorize the law director to drop legislation approving the sale or the purchase of this vehicle.
Sure, we
The
could do
bucket
that.
truck vehicle. Yeah, so this way, there's some commitment on your part. And when you do that, and you've already, if it's passed, then, the rest of it's going to be easy in 2 weeks.
Is there a dollar amount, again, you could put on that, chief or lieutenant, just so we can, I'd like to mention
Yeah, what
it.
are we looking at?
2.28?
2.28786.
So
Just call it 2.3?
2.28.
278-736.00.
You have to call again with that, the motion, and again, see if Atlantic will accept that. And if they will not accept that, how long would it take to draft up paperwork?
We could call a special meeting.
And have a special
And
meeting?
that's where we're at.
Like, how long would it take to draft special paperwork to just get together, a special meeting tomorrow or Thursday?
The legislation's not going to take me.
So we could
More than
technically, if we find out in the
20
morning
minutes.
Atlantic says no, that's not good
Do you have
enough.
enough for the motion? or-
Yeah, we would have to call a special meeting for the
And you
the
could have-
specific purpose of the entering into the contract, but as Bill said, amending.
So in the interest of time,
What's the original authorization amount, by the way?
$1,723,058.
723.
$1,007,000.
I know you want to go through this, Scott, but this is quick. This is important.
Christina, I mean, if they
well, I
move it up
understand that, I'm just trying to restate
500,000
the motion I'm supposed to make.
quickly,
It would be me making the
are we
motion.
okay to cover that?
Moved if they don't
It's going to be
accept it.
bonded.
We're not going to pay for it.
They're not
till we
open.
get
We're not
it.
paying cash.
No, I mean,
bonding it out.
we're
Right, but we need to figure this out.
So we
we
will be financing the purchase, however, we will not be paying Atlantic anything until we receive the
Until we
vehicle.
receive it.
That's what I'm saying, I'm back to
could
the
receive it in
meeting.
October or...
No, of 24.
Next year.
Not next month.
I
No,
thought you
another
said-
year.
You could commit 1.7 million. That's
Actually, they have that. They actually have that. You're right.
already been authorized.
Yes.
So I mean, I think the motion coupled with these points, bullet pointed to them tomorrow.
that's a good point.
Vanzana, would you
We already have
restate the motion?
I would say a motion to direct the law director to prepare an amendment to the, what was the original authorization?
1.75 and change.
What was that ordinance number?
What was the number?
9522.
So a motion to authorize the law director to move forward with preparing amendment to
Ordinance 9522.
9522.
Increase the amount to 2.3, rough, 2.3? Just all the seven, just round it up and make it two numbers. 2.3?
Yeah.
Okay. To increase the amount to 2.3 million, do we need to know the name of the truck? Is there a reference?
A name?
Never
It's a
mind.
Pierce platform.
I don't think that,
Okay.
all of that'll be in the
You got enough. We're good.
amendment legislation that comes
All right.
back in 2 weeks.
All right, new business miscellaneous, we can handle that. Okay.
Any other questions? I won't be here for council, so any questions regarding the fire department?
So he'll call in the morning and you'll let us know if it's good enough tomorrow.
Chief, I do have one. So just, if I missed this, I apologize. So we're going from 1.7 to 2.3 million. Where's the savings?
It's in the fact that I'm not going to ask you for another ladder truck in 5 years at $2.5 million. That's the savings. The plan before I showed up was to replace both ladder trucks. So in the 10-year plan, he had a plan to replace the platform as well. The platform should have been the first thing that was replaced. Does that make sense? We have two, straight stick and a platform. common sense said to do the platform, but I'm here to bring common sense back and say, just replace the platform, and we don't need the straight stick. So there's a $2.5 million savings because we don't need that other truck.
In a couple years.
Ever. We don't need a second ladder.
Well, but we're buying a different one
It'd
instead.
be an engine, but that's 10 years, that's 8 to 10 years down the road. That's not a ladder truck.
And that was always,
Replacement
that was going to be
engine.
purchased.
And we were going to need an engine truck anyway.
You're gonna need an engine anyway, and we're reducing the fleet by one ladder truck.
Okay.
So operations costs are going down, fuel, all that stuff is going down, insurance, all that goes down.
My insurance.
Thank
There
you.
is some savings there. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation.
Perfect.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I went way too long, sorry.
It's all right. No, this is good stuff. Thank you.
It is.
Next time, I'm giving you 10
Absolutely.
minutes.
All right. Any other items for discussion?
Chris.
All right, that moves us along to audience participation. Shannon, do we have anyone this evening?
Yes, first we have Dan Stoffer.
All right. Good evening, sir. If you just state your name and address, please.
Yeah, hi, good evening. My name's Dan Stoffer. I'm here with my wife of 28 years. There's two issues that I wanted to speak to. One's kind of less important to us, but I think I wanted to bring it up because we were at the meeting. Can I pass out some photographs that I can speak to?
Sure, absolutely.
Can pass these around as well.
Thank you, sir.
So my wife and I live at the corner of Glenwood and Gary, 2091 Gary Drive. I've been a resident of Twinsburg since 1968, 55 years. We've lived at our house since 1995, so we've been here for quite a while. The pictures I'm showing you right now are related to the fence along Glenwood Drive. It was a fence that was installed by the city back in the late 90s or early 2000s under the discretion of Bill Hahn, who was the representative of that time. And I'm just passing these out because the fence is severely decaying. It either needs repaired, replaced, or just removed. It really doesn't matter to me. Over the years, I've replaced a bunch of the rails on it, but it's just falling apart. So whatever you want to do with that is fine. I don't really have more comments about that item. The next item that can I move on, or are there any
Absolutely,
questions
sir.
about
Yeah,
that? Okay.
absolutely.
So the next one, I'd like to pass out pictures again, if you don't mind.
Please.
There's two sets, so just take one of each of these and one of each of these, because I'll speak to these. Can I have one, though? You may need to share. No,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
I want, yeah.
Just so that I don't need that one, just so I can point to it if I need to.
Sure.
Sure, Dan.
Okay. So this issue is about our pond.
Okay.
I'm going to try to keep my emotions down if I can. Again, we built our house back in 1995, and we've had, for the last 16 years, we've had quite a rough ride with our pond. Back in 2007, the city approached us, we didn't approach the city, to acquire an easement for the installation of an outlet structure and a storm sewer to take the water out of our pond. Previously, there was a sewer there, and it was done as part of the Gary Drive Improvement Project. We very reluctantly granted the easement. When we did that, we wrote a letter explaining that the pond was very important to us and it should be left undisturbed. Immediately upon installation, we realized the pond was leaking. It didn't hold water. Over the years, there's been numerous attempts to resolve this and to maintain the water in the pond. None of them have been successful. Sometimes I've been ignored, sometimes I've been insulted, it's just been a variety of bad things that have happened to us. And so I'm here tonight. We have an easement that calls for the installation, the maintenance, and repair of this storm sewer and the outflow structure. I would argue that the installation was done wrong, the design was probably done wrong, and now I'm here to talk about maintenance. We've been asking for maintenance on this structure for many years. I've brought videotapes in showing how it's leaking. The last time I called to get repairs that repairs were actually done was a year ago in June. Called in June, repairs took place in August, on August 30th, and by September 19th, I proved that it was leaking again with a dye test. Enough's enough. I think that this thing needs to either be resolved, replaced, or something else. In the spring of this year, I approached many of the members of council, not everybody. Eventually, I went to the mayor, and the mayor seemed to be interested in helping us. I voiced our concerns, and ultimately, I ended up with an agreement from the law director explaining why we should give the city one more shot to repair this inlet, but we should take ownership of it and be responsible for all future repairs of it. It's unacceptable. We're quite willing to be involved with a resolution that has us take the inlet back. But if you think for a second that we're going to take it back after it's been repaired numerous times, never once correctly, and then I'm responsible for it, that's out of the question. As far as I'm concerned, the city has a written agreement with us to maintain that structure and has failed to do it each and every time. I guess what I'd like for somebody to do is take a leadership role in this and work with us to get this thing either fixed some way or get it back to us in a way that's not just one-sided with the city. Those are my comments. I'd appreciate some assistance from council. I shouldn't need to be here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stoffers. Anyone have anything, any response?
I just have a quick question. Mr. Stoffer, so is it leaking at the structure? Is that
Leaking around the structure. In my opinion, the structure was not designed properly. And actually, I think Amy would agree that there's some defects in the design. I don't want to speak for her. The pipe that was installed was oversized. We can get into a lot of details. I have a folder full of details.
Okay, but that's where the leak,
It's leaking
been
around the
determined
structure.
that's where the leak is.
Yes. It's
Okay.
leaking around the structure, and it can be proved with dye. But I think Amy's well aware of the problem. The problem is getting a real solution. We don't mind taking the structure back, but we're not going to take it under these terms, okay? The last time I heard, so just to give a little insight on, we received this agreement from the law director on August 1st. We immediately responded, said on August 2nd that it was unacceptable. And we also said that we are willing, we want to get this thing resolved, and we have not heard one thing since August 2nd. Nothing at all. We're just tired of years of inaction, and then when we get a little bit of action, it still fails. It's defective, it needs to be resolved, and we've had 16 years to watch this thing happen.
Understood.
So, everybody knows how to reach me. I'd appreciate if somebody does.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Next, we have Lynn Clark.
Good evening, Lynn Clark, 2485 Old Mill Road. Hey, there's a couple of things I've noticed that have changed around the city. One is we used to have this Tree City sign as we came into our city. Whatever happened to that?
We were never a tree city. We were not a tree city. There were requirements, we talked about this 20 years ago, about the things you had to do to become a tree city. We were not a tree city. We were not
Perhaps I was
authorized.
mistaken as coming into the township and not the city.
Possibly.
Okay, never mind that.
Thank you.
Moving on. Hey, one of the things I heard tonight that I particularly liked was the fact the fire chief is a resident of this town. We've got a lot of people making key decisions that are not residents of the town they serve. And I'm just perplexed why that is, that the consequence of their actions, they pack up, they go home to Jabougamau, Stowe, wherever it is. Why don't we have a requirement for that?
I believe most residency requirements, especially in the public safety and public sector, have been ruled unconstitutional.
That is something I didn't know. Thank you. I'm getting answers to some questions. One of the questions I also have is I know we've got to change in our process for requests for public information. Sam and I had a discussion about that when I was here about a month ago. Now, when I submit a request for information, Shannon sends me a confirmatory email. Yes, this has been received. I get an automatic one from the system, but what I don't get is a response to many of those requests. And I don't have tons and tons of them, but I do have about 4 or 5.
Mr. Clerk, I did see a request for public information. I saw that, and actually I've asked the clerk to start to notify us of public information, anybody that's public information. And we are absolutely, and the law director will talk to you, but, or give you the legal side, but the Cliff Note version is, we'd be happy to give you information that's available. We're not going to create reports for you. And I've read what you're asking to do, and that was, it was not things that we could just hand you. You were asking us to complete work product for you. That's not a public information request. That's a...
What I've asked in each case is for the public records as defined by Ohio standards.
As I read your request, it looked like you were asking for tasks to be done.
Okay,
And
so if there was a question, I was also trying to follow that part of the guidance where it says, be as specific as you can.
Okay.
To try to narrow your search.
Because you've had challenge, you have challenged that we were not giving you information in the past. In fact, you did a process to prove that, which I believe we were found to be, that we gave you everything that we had to give you. So I'll let the lawyer talk from here, because I'm just sitting here. He's the guy that's going to write the memo, but I'm just telling you, the answer is, we're working to get public information requests out, but we're not going to create.
I can do the analysis. I just need the baseline information.
Okay.
That is defined by Ohio Revised Code.
As I read your request, it looked like you were asking us to prepare things as opposed to give you things.
So you're probably speaking to one particular request.
Okay. It's probably 2 weeks ago I was given the first copy of it, so.
Okay. So I've got about
when you
half
came here before and said, well, you're not getting your information, I said, let me
Still
see
not.
what he's asking for, because I think Shannon does an outstanding job of getting public information requests for the whole community. It takes it very seriously. In fact, there were people disparaging how we got things out and how it was going to be given a few months ago, which was actually incorrect, and I pointed that out that night. So we'd be happy to give you information. We're just not going to do term papers for you.
I don't need that, just the baseline information, as defined in Ohio Revised Code.
Okay.
Now, one of the things I've noticed too is I have been told historically that what I requested did not exist, and yet curiously it shows up in a public forum a short time afterwards. So,
not aware of what you're referring to.
And I'm sure at least one person in this room knows what I'm talking about. So the other thing consistent with that request for information is relative to the revisions that ZoneCo is evaluating. Ms. Ziegler told me, give her a list of my comments, concerns, questions, and I would get a response. This goes back a couple of months. I've followed up with her once or twice. Nada in return. And just wondering why.
The request that I saw was to Ms. Ziegler, and I referred it to the law director 2 weeks ago for a comment. And I've talked to Matt, or talked to Mr. Vizan a few times about this, and I think he's just trying to get the case law together to cite his position.
Yeah, I think right out of the gate, Lynn, Mr. Clark, that's not a public records request. I mean, you have over 8 pages of questions.
But Ms.
Just saying the word public records
Ms.
doesn't make
Ziegler,
something a public
Matt,
record
those are
request.
two different things, right? Ms. Ziegler
it's
said
not.
if
You were
I
talking
had
ab-
comments, questions,
She
concerns.
opened up to the public to submit comments as a part of the zoning code review, which you did.
And she said I would get a response.
I'm not familiar with that part of it.
Exactly.
But I will tell you that none of the department heads have a legal obligation to respond to every single question that is sent into them. And it sounds like that's what you're suggesting to this council, that when you submitted hundreds and hundreds of questions via an 8+ page document to her, and then when she responded kindly immediately after receiving it, saying that she would submit the same to the team to review as part of the zoning code update, you received that, correct?
Yes.
She did that. And then
She
you were
said, "I'm turning it
frustrated
over to
because
my
she didn't
staff."
provide an answer to the hundreds and hundreds of questions in there
And aren't
in a
all of,
timely fashion. That's not an obligation that she has, but I will tell you, what she did do was send that on to her team as a part of the zoning code rewrite process. That is not a public records request.
and I didn't
Stand at the
suggest
podium
that
and
it was.
characterize-
I
yes, you
said
did.
this was two different things.
It's not two different things. You were
Matt?
talking to Mr. Fury about that request.
No, that was.
And you have other requests that I've been reviewing.
I do. When might
Similarly,
I,
most of your requests, and I believe you were told this with legal citations that you then posted to the internet, I was informed of, that, again, you can't just ask questions. You have to ask for specific existing documents.
and so this.
Again, the words public records, which you started your comments off today, does not mean that a public record exists.
Oh,
Just because
so-
you think it does.
So one of the
Doesn't mean it
public
exists.
records that I asked for was the communications between the city
Mm-hmm.
and Scanell.
Which you did receive. You've made that request in the past, and you have re-requested hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of files that amounts to over thousands and thousands of pages, which, council, just so you know, I am currently reviewing those again for Mr. Clark, along with reviewing 3, I think, or 2 other public records requests that, again, some of those fall into the bucket of Mr. Clark believing that when he asks a question, that now means that a document exists. The state of Ohio requires public entities to provide documents when they're specifically requested. The state of Ohio does not require that we create documents for requesters. Does not require that our public officials create work product, as you said, but I'll dumb it down a little bit and just say, public officials do not have an obligation to answer questions and then create documents responsive to that.
So Matt, why is it that when I ask for public documents relative to the Scanell development on Old Mill Road, specifically asking for the checklist, I was told they don't exist, we can't give you that doesn't exist. And yet, when the documents by the city were posted to the court's docket, there was a checklist in there. I also asked for the communications that were between.
Which you did receive, as I said. You've received thousands of pages of documents.
That checklist.
Apparently, you may have found one that you didn't properly request, a checklist.
The checklist.
I mean, so the
was
city
in
should go
court
through every single
document.
checklist and supply them to you, and then say, okay, we've spent the last 6 months reviewing all checklists, and here you go, Mr. Clark, here's the checklist that you wanted, even though it wasn't referred to as a checklist, and therefore you didn't specifically request that document. I think we went through this one with the Ohio Court of Claims. This was the exact allegation that you raised there,
And
and the
because,
court found against you on that one.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm not going to relitigate something that has already, you personally, already brought to the court's attention.
but
And again, you
it's
lost.
because I couldn't identify a document which I perceived.
And therein lies the problem. Just because you perceive that a document might exist, or that in your brain, which is what you said during those hearings, that you believed a reasonable engineer would have created that document, doesn't mean that the document exists.
But in
And if the
fact,
document
it
doesn't
did exist.
the Public Records Act doesn't apply.
So,
So mythical documents aside, the point is the city is committed to getting the documents to you and anyone else that requests them. But when they don't exist, you don't get them.
okay, so what you're saying
That
right
simple.
now is there's a document that's physically present in your files that is part of the Court of
That's not
Summit
what I
County.
said. I said you raised that
was
allegation
not
and
in
that
anything
the court
that I
found
have
against you on
ever
that because
been
the city was
said.
able to provide, that was not the case. And again, that's already been litigated. Why are we relitigating that
understand
tonight
it,
when the
and it's
city
because-
has very important business to take care of tonight? And as I said, the commitment here in Twinsburg is always to get the documents to the people that request them. But we can't make up documents just because you think they exist.
But there was a document that existed that had not been presented to me.
Already answered that question twice now.
Yeah.
That's
And-
this
And it's
checklist.
curious that your perception is totally different than anybody
The courts,
else.
it's identical to what the court perceived on that when you raised that allegation,
Because-
along with others. Again,
And then the document appears.
No, that's not how that worked, but.
That is how that worked.
I'm not going to keep answering the same
All right.
question over and over.
Is there anything else, Mr. Clark?
Thank you for your time. Just
Caucus, a little back and forth.
so
Get it
it's,
all out there.
when can I expect to see a response to these other requests?
Like I said, I've been working on them. You'll hear from the city on those, I would say, by the end of this week.
Thank you.
So, and
Thank you,
again,
Mr.
remember, request specific existing documents, don't send in questions. That might alleviate some of the heartburn.
And
stuff.
I've revised my text to say, I want the public record.
Again, just using the phrase public records doesn't satisfy the statute. You have to request a specific document. But again, I'll be reaching out to you this week, and I'm happy, I want to work with you to get you the documents that exist.
That is the
for
best thing I've heard tonight, Mr. Vizina.
You've heard that, that was in every communication that I've sent to you, I have included that please, let me know if there's anything that I can help you with to narrow this down. So,
Maybe I should just come in and go through the files.
we'll talk about that one. That can be an option in certain circumstances.
Thank you.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
That's all we have tonight for audience participation.
All right.
That's the agenda.
Moving along to pending legislation. We're going to start this evening with Ordinance 88, 2023. This ordinance will be on its final reading tonight as an emergency. As a reminder, the ordinance is to accept the tax amount and rate for the 2023 tax year. These taxes will be collected in 2024. The total millage is 3.0, which the county estimates to generate approximately $2.19 million. This amount includes the 0.3 for the police pension, 0.3 for the fire pensions, and the 2.4 mils for the police and fire levy and capital improvement fund. The reason for the emergency clause this evening is so that we can get this to Summit County by the October 1st deadline. Does anyone have any questions on 88?
No, thank you.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to 89. This is an ordinance for the advancement of local taxes from Summit County. This will also be on its third and final reading tonight with an emergency clause. Ordinance 89 is an annual legislation to authorize a request of advancement from the county for local taxes. Again, the reason for the emergency clause this evening is to have this to Summit County by the October 1st deadline. Is there any question on Ordinance 89, 2023?
No, thank you.
Moving along to Ordinance 92, 2023. This ordinance is a budget adjustment for the bank stabilization and sanitary repair project. This will be on its third and final reading tonight. Are there any questions or comments on Ordinance 92, 2023?
No, thank you.
All right, moving along to Ordinance 95, 2023. This is an ordinance to amend Resolution 56-2020 regarding the Jedi Committee. This will also be on its third and final reading this evening. As stated in previous meetings, this does not change the composition of the resident members of the committee, but employee and council members are placed in line with other boards and commissions in the city. Is there any discussion on Ordinance 95, 2023? Mr. Deeds.
I believe everyone, all the council members, received the letter this morning from Crystal Davis, one of the members of the Jedi Committee, and it was signed by, or at least their names were typed, I assume they mean they approved this, by 5 other members of the Jedi Committee, asking that we don't act on this tonight, that we, let this pass. And I would suggest that we table this for at least one meeting to give members of the Jedi Committee a chance to come in and discuss this.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. We will move on to Resolution 97, 2023. This resolution is the receipt and acknowledgement of the monthly reports for April through June 2023. Does council have any questions on Resolution 97?
No.
All right, that moves us on to Ordinance 98, 2023. This is an ordinance to amend the appropriations for the Capital Improvement Fund. The community center did sustain some damage during the recent storms. We did make a claim with our city's insurance carrier. The insurance carrier has agreed to reimburse the city the amount of $41,319.27. Since this was an unexplained expense or unplanned expense, the corresponding revenue and expense needs to be adjusted to account for this. The reason for the emergency this evening is to be able to start the work as soon as possible. Any questions on 98, 2023? All right. Moving along to ordinance 99, 2023. This ordinance is to award the Glen Chamberlain Playground project under the cooperative purchasing contract with Omnia. This legislation allows for the city to both participate and enter into an agreement with Omnia partners. The total amount for the project is $224,938.54. This will be paid for with $100,000 in ODNR grant money and $124,938.54 from the Capital Improvement Fund. The reason we're asking for an emergency this evening is so that we can get this equipment ordered for installation prior to the park reopening in the summer of 2024. We do have the Parks and Rec Director here this evening. Are there any questions or comments regarding 99, 2023?
No, thank you.
All right, moving along. Ordinance 100, 2023 is an ordinance to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Ohio Patrolman Benevolent Association Patrol Unit. This details of the agreement will be discussed during legislation part of the regular council meeting. Mr. Vazana will speak more to that a little later this evening.
Thank you.
Along those same lines, we have ordinance 101, 2023, and this ordinance is to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the OPBA Dispatchers Unit. Details of this agreement will be discussed during the legislation part of the regular meeting as well. I know that we have a planned executive session prior to the legislation for council to be brought up to speed on some of these last-minute changes, and looking forward to some positive resolution on this. That concludes legislation. It moves us along to miscellaneous this evening. Council, does anyone have any miscellaneous items to discuss? Mayor, Law Director?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm going to keep us moving along here and adjourn the caucus meeting at 8 p.m. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Shannon, call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
All right, the meeting is adjourned at 8:01 p.m.